Before there was this handheld Smash, there was this handheld Smash. Smash for 3DS has always been unique because it's the complete Smash Bros. Experience jammed onto a console put in someone's back pocket filled with Cheeto dust. It's amazing to see how handheld gaming has evolved over the years, and Smash for 3DS plays a special role in that history. 3DS and Wii U both have a whole host of unique stages, offering different content for both versions. The vast majority of Smash for 3DS's new stages focus on games found on handhelds, ranging from the original Game Boy all the way up to the 3DS. But both versions of Smash 4 also have a few stages in common for both the base game and DLC. So how we'll handle this is in this video, I'm going to tackle the base roster stages found in both games and the 3DS exclusives. Then in the following video, we'll go over the Wii U exclusives and finish off with the paid DLC. So with that addressed, let's begin. The first stage found in both Smash for 3DS and Wii U is none other than Boxing Ring. The basis for this stage is of course the Punch-Out series. It's a fairly straightforward stage. A boxing ring is in the middle, with walkways on the left and right side, and adoring fans in both the foreground and background. Additionally, there is a giant light fixture at the top illuminating the ring, which can also be attacked and knocked down as a stage hazard. The stage itself is an interesting fusion of Smash original concepts combined with elements from the reboot of Punch-Out for the Wii, more specifically the appearance of the ring in the World Circuit. The background of the stage also features a Jumbotron, which has a number of details. Initially, it will just display the Smash battle, as though this was taking place at a real-life sporting event for people to look at. Occasionally, text will also appear based on what's happening in the match, such as a Smash Ball appearing or during sudden death. In Smash for Wii U, this Jumbotron will eventually transition into a stat-like screen. On the left and right, two of the fighters will be displayed with their character renders and a special title, just like real-life boxers might have. Every single character in the game has a unique boxing ring title inspired by their history, characterization, or just some kind of pun. All alternate character costumes also have different titles, such as the Koopalings, Alf, or variations of Hero. I won't go through them all since there are well over 100, and most are pretty self-explanatory anyway. The center of the Jumbotron also shows some match stats, including how many matches have been played, the current leader of the match, number of KOs, and damage total. The entire premise of this form of the Jumbotron is taken from the second screen found on the Punch-Out arcade game, where both boxers are on either side and similar stats are displayed down the middle. Smash just adapts this for their own game and expands on the ideas. Boxing Ring also has a not-so-secret alternate form where all of the Punch-Out aesthetics are replaced with the Smash Bros. Name and logo. Functionally, this is exactly the same as the first variant, it's just a fun alternate appearance that makes the stage feel more Smash original. Either of these forms can be chosen via a button press when selecting the stage, and both return in the jump to Ultimate as well. Our next shared stage between the versions comes from the Xenoblade series, Gaur Plain from Xenoblade Chronicles. This stage features a rocky cliffside with a ravine in the center and smaller rock platforms underneath the larger cliffs. In the background, we can see a big grassy plain, and at the horizon, a giant mechanical being, the Mechonis, one of the two giant titans that serve as Shulk's world. The Mechonis is the counterpart to the Bionis, the titan where Gaur Plain exists and which Shulk lives on. Gaur Plain is one of the earlier regions that Shulk and the party visit, located on Bionis Leg. In Smash for 3DS, this is the extent of the stage. However, there is much more to the stage in Smash for Wii U. First, there is a pretty big difference between the platforms and blast zones between both versions of the stage. During nighttime, a stage boss has a chance to appear, Metalface. Metalface is one of the major antagonists found in Xenoblade Chronicles. He'll appear on stage and begin attacking fighters throughout the night. He can fire cannons and attack with claw swipes, destroying the terrain of the stage in the process. Like most boss characters, he can be attacked and eventually defeated, causing a massive explosion that can damage all players except for the one who dealt the final blow. If he's not defeated, he will simply fly off screen when it becomes daytime. Either way, when morning comes, the terrain will reset to its original form, and whether defeated or not, Metalface can reappear during multiple night cycles. The inclusion of Gaur Plain on both the 3DS and Wii U versions could possibly be seen as a nod to the game's existence on both home console and handheld, with the original game being a Wii release and the 3DS remake releasing only 6 months after Smash for 3DS. Next, we have Wily Castle from the Mega Man series. This stage features a very robotic platform where, in the background, we can see Dr. Wily's castle proper, which is based on its appearance for Mega Man 2. Each version of this stage features a different implementation of moving platforms. On Smash for 3DS, platforms will drop from above the main stage and hover there. There are also a couple of different types of platforms on rails on the left and right sides that will move either back and forth or up and down. These are inspired by platforms found in Brightman stage and the Taco Trash boss room in Mega Man 4, and in Tomahawk Man stage in Mega Man 6. On Smash for Wii U, platforms will travel along small colored rails, eventually dropping when they reach the end of the path. These are inspired by platforms that first appeared in Guts Man stage in Mega Man 1. And in the Jump to Ultimate, all of these platforms are combined into one single stage. In Smash for 3DS, the stage takes place at daytime, while in Wii U, it's nighttime. Regardless of the version you're playing on, after a while a boss character will appear, the Yellow Devil. The Yellow Devil is a boss that first appeared towards the end of the first Mega Man game, attacking by dividing itself into small yellow orbs before returning to its normal state, where it can attack with lasers. Mega Man's only means of damaging it is to attack it in its eye when it's in its normal form. The same is true in Smash. The Yellow Devil will fire itself in orb form from Wily's Castle, coming together on the actual stage. It'll fire a few lasers, then alternate sides in its orb form again, repeating the process. All fighters can attack its eye when in its normal form, and eventually it can be defeated. It will then cause a large explosion that damages all except whoever dealt the final blow. And if it isn't defeated, it will simply go away after a short time. And we have one final stage for now, Duck Hunt, a stage that was free in an update for Smash for 3DS, and which was included at launch in Smash for Wii U. Duck Hunt literally takes the entire game of Duck Hunt from the NES and recreates it in a stage. Rather than having some inexplicable reticle shooting the ducks, instead the ducks are defeated by fighters' attacks. All of these ducks are worth the same number of points as in Duck Hunt, and the HUD at the bottom will update with your hits, misses, and scores. The dog will even appear, reacting to your performance by either holding up the ducks you attacked or laughing at you like he loves to do. Duck Hunt for NES had 3 game modes. Game A had 1 duck appear at a time, while Game B had 2 ducks appear at a time. Game C included clay pigeons, so it's not really relevant. The stage can summon either 1 or 2 ducks per round, so it sort of combines Duck Hunt's 2 duck center games into one, which is fine since hitting ducks with Smash Fighters is way easier than using the zapper. There are occasionally patches of grass that exist in the foreground, capable of being a platform for a short time, or even hiding players and items. Additionally, the dog acts as a platform at the end of each round. And that does it for every stage in the base roster of Smash 4 that's shared between both versions, so we'll now move on to the first exclusive stage introduced in Smash for 3DS, which is none other than 3D Land, of course referencing the 3DS game Super Mario 3D Land. Rather than being a specific reference to any one level, this stage is a scroller that visits different types of areas that can be found in different levels of Super Mario 3D Land. It starts out on a grasslands area, somewhat based off of World 1-1 in 3D Land. Following that is a valley area, loosely based on World 8-2. There's a downhill slope section based on World 4-1, and then of course a beach, a more general design that fuses concepts of water levels found all across the game. There are blocks and platforms that either debuted in or use their appearance from Super Mario 3D Land, such as flip panels and note blocks. When playing with items, the brick and question mark blocks will of course spawn out items. However, a neat quirk of this stage is that it offers a higher chance of spawning the Super Leaf if that item is enabled. This is because the Super Leaf made a return in 3D Land after a 23-year absence, being the main gimmick of the title, so I think it's a cute little detail for Smash to have. In Smash Ultimate, this stage was given the HD treatment, though rather than just improving its appearance, the level's design was instead made to be closer to the appearance of 3D Land's sequel, Super Mario 3D World. And following 3D Land, we have another handheld Mario-inspired stage, Golden Plains, which is inspired by New Super Mario Bros. 2 for the 3DS. As far as the layout goes, this is basically Smash Original, with really the level design and certain elements being pulled from the first world of New Super Mario Bros. 2. Right away you'll notice that there are coins all over this stage, and that's because the main gimmick of New Super Mario Bros. 2 was collecting coins, with the main goal being to collect 1 million. To reference this, players can collect coins by jumping into them, just like in the Mario series, with a coin counter in the top left to help you keep track. There are standard golden coins, which are each worth 1 coin. Players can activate blue P-switches when they appear periodically, which add even more coins onto the stage to be collected, also worth 1 coin each. Finally, red rings can appear, which, when jumped through, spawn 8 red coins. While in their home series, collecting all 8 typically results in a power-up or 1-up mushroom, in Smash, nothing happens when you collect all 8. However, each is instead worth 5 coins for a total of 40 additional coins if you can get them all in the time limit. When any player collects a total of 100 coins, they will become a Gold Fighter, a power-up of sorts in Smash that offers stronger attacks and super armor, making you essentially a super fighter. This is a direct parallel to the Gold Flower power-up, which turns Mario into Gold Mario, allowing him to throw golden fireballs that can result in coins. The Gold Fighter in Smash doesn't have any of these abilities though, so the parallel really stops at the fighter becoming similarly golden. Next up, we have a new Mario Kart stage, Rainbow Road. Specifically, this version of Rainbow Road is from Mario Kart 7, though Rainbow Road has appeared in every Mario Kart game from the beginning. While concessions were made to adjust the track in small ways, this is in essence the track pulled straight out of Mario Kart 7. The theme of the track in this game focused a lot more on the space side of things, with racers actually driving on the moon at one point. The stage follows the standard Mario Kart stage and Smash formula, with a main platform that travels around the racetrack, stopping at various areas along the track to have players fight directly on it. This stage once again has Shy Guys serving as the racers, referencing download play for Mario Kart on handhelds, where players could play local multiplayer without owning the game, forced to play as a Shy Guy. Sadly, this stage never saw a return in Ultimate, leaving one of the cooler Smash 3DS stages stuck on that version of the game. Next, we have the first ever Paper Mario stage in Smash history, literally just called Paper Mario. In a way, this stage is similar to the way that Castle Siege was handled for the Fire Emblem series back in Brawl. By not having much representation in prior games, the Smash team makes up for lost time by referencing multiple entries in the series, making this a stage that transforms to different settings. The starting form the stage takes is a sort of grassy cliffside featuring a windmill. This section is inspired by Hither Thither Hill, the 4th level of World 1 from Paper Mario Sticker Star. Mario must paperize using the fan thing, which causes the fan to appear in the background of the stage and blow the blades of the windmill. In Smash, this same fan appears in the background, which blows strong wind, shoving players to the right while also spinning the windmill. The stage then transitions into a setting found on the ocean at sunset on a large ship. This ship is inspired by the SS Flavion, a ship captained by Flavio that Mario and the party use in Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, the second entry in the series. While on this form, a big blooper will appear, serving as a stage hazard of sorts. Rather than attacking players as you might expect, the blooper instead causes large waves that will cause the ship to jostle at weird angles, just to throw off the fight a bit. While there isn't an interaction with a big blooper while on the SS Flavion in the games, big bloopers are a common boss in the Paper Mario series, so it just must have felt natural to include this one here. Another possibility during this form is the appearance of the Whale, a character from the original Paper Mario who ultimately served as the means to get to Lava Lava Island. In Smash, the Whale will appear directly below the SS Flavion and blast water out of its blowhole, causing the ship to raise up in the air, stopping it from rocking and bringing it closer to the upper blast zone. Again, the Whale doesn't have any interaction with the SS Flavion, or any appearance in Thousand Year Door at all for that matter. Likely it's just another inclusion based on the ocean setting. The final form the stage takes on brings us back to a Sticker Star reference, Bowser's Sky Castle, the final level of the game. This is inspired by the entrance to the castle, where a giant statue of Bowser's head appears. However, the head rotating, having different colored eyes, clamping its jaw as an attack, and the clown car colored platforms on either side are all original to Smash to make this form just a bit more engaging. In Sticker Star, this section is purely an entrance to the castle and nothing more. However, the implication of the castle flying in the sky could be a reference to the original Paper Mario, where Bowser's castle was indeed capable of flying in the air. In this stage's upgrade to Ultimate, the actual art style for the stage is updated to match design elements from Paper Mario Color Splash, the entry in the series right after Sticker Star. Leaving the Mario series for now, our next stage is Gerudo Valley, representing the Zelda series. Gerudo Valley is a region found in The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, perhaps most well known for its absolute banger of a background track. The stage takes place in a mountainous area, with cliffs on the left and right, a river splitting the two down the middle, and a bridge connecting them. This is taken very faithfully from its appearance in Ocarina of Time, with the only exception being the couple of platforms that naturally aren't usually there. Below the bridge are a couple of branches and a set of spikes. This bridge will eventually break, either by taking enough damage or weight, or by running out the pre-existing timer that the stage has. Either way, shortly after this happens, Kume and Kotake will appear while laughing. One of the two at random will attack the field with their magic spell. Kume will attack the left side with the fire spell, causing players on that side to take gradual damage. Kotake will attack the right side with an ice spell, causing a giant spiky iceberg to appear, dealing damage and of course freezing players. Kume and Kotake are the adoptive mothers of Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time, and also feature as the bosses of the Spirit Temple, which is conveniently the closest temple to Gerudo Valley. The two both attack with their respective element in Ocarina of Time, and upon being defeated by Link, will fuse into a single being known as Twin Rova, capable of using both ice and fire. After a bit, the Song of Time will play on the stage, seemingly resetting it to its original form, repairing the bridge. Just behind the fighting area you can see a tent, which exists in this spot in Ocarina of Time and belongs to the Carpenters. The Gerudo people decided to destroy the bridge in order to prevent intruders, and the Carpenters attempted to repair it before being kidnapped by the Gerudo. Link can only access this area by jumping the gap with Epona, and he then saves the Carpenters, who ultimately end up fixing the bridge. In the further background, we can see Gerudo Fortress on the mountainside, a further nod to this segment of the game. While Gerudo Valley first debuted on the N64, everything about this stage is mostly inspired by Ocarina of Time 3D, the 3DS remake, so that still kind of fits in with the game's handheld release focus. Our other new Zelda stage is Spirit Train. As you might have surmised, this stage takes place aboard the Spirit Train, one of the central mechanics from The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks for the Nintendo DS. The train speeds down the tracks, with players capable of falling on the track and either getting pulled into the blast zone or hitting the locomotive in the front. In Smash, the Spirit Engine will pull two additional cars. The first is the Solid Passenger Car, which comes standard with the Spirit Train at the beginning of the game. Additionally, it will always start off with the Trusty Freight Car, the first one that Link receives in Spirit Tracks. However, throughout the match, the train will move over towards the right side of the stage, leaving the final car not visible. It will then pull back towards the center with a new car. It'll do this frequently throughout the match, with multiple different cars possible. Aside from the standard car, there's also a broken carriage where players can accidentally fall through the hole, a carriage with multiple platforms haphazardly built on top, a carriage filled with a big pile of coal, making it an uneven surface to stand on, and a carriage that has a building on it, specifically the Linebeck Trading Company, a shop where Link can obtain train parts, though it never appears on a train car in the actual game. Finally, two enemy types will regularly attack the Spirit Train, both of which are found in the actual Spirit Tracks game. The first is the Armored Train, which will slam into the Spirit Train and push it closer to either the left or right blast zone. The other is the Dark Train, which are trains that are designed to explode. They will either approach near the side before exploding, or jump up onto the actual Spirit Train to explode. During battles on the Spirit Train, the players can see Toon Link in his Royal Engineer uniform actually driving the train, just as he does in Spirit Tracks. However, if Toon Link is one of the selected fighters during the match, the Engineer Toon Link will instead be replaced by Alfonso, a fellow Royal Engineer who also serves as Toon Link's mentor. Next up, we have a brand new Kirby stage. In Smash for 3DS, this is simply named Dreamland, however in Ultimate it was officially named Dreamland GB, for obvious reasons. This stage is based on the first ever Kirby game, Kirby's Dream Land for the Game Boy. However, it takes this reference very seriously, and the entirety of the stage takes place inside of an actual dot matrix Game Boy system, making everything the iconic Game Boy green. Furthermore, when there are only 5 seconds remaining in time matches, the red LED will begin to fade as though the system is about to lose power because of dead batteries. The actual stage starts with the Game Boy's original boot up sequence, with the slowly lowered Nintendo logo and sound effect before loading into the first form of the stage. The stage has 7 different forms that represent each of the stages of Kirby's Dream Land. First, we start out on the Green Greens form, representing the first stage of the game. After that, we have forms for both the exterior and interior of Castle Lololo, which serves as a reference to the second stage of the game. Third are the Float Islands, the third stage of the game. While this section features a ship and a water area, fighters can't actually swim on this form of the stage. And then we have the fourth stage of the game, Bubbly Clouds, which takes place presumably high up in the sky using clouds as platforms. Finally, we have 2 forms representing Mount Dedede, the final stage of the game. First is the Boss Rush Lobby, where Kirby needs to take on the previous 4 bosses once again. Second is the Boxing Ring, the arena for the final showdown with King Dedede. All of the sprites for each form of the stage are ripped straight from Kirby's Dream Land and effectively put into Smash 1-to-1, with the only exception being that there are no enemies that appear during actual gameplay. Like I said before, the stage typically appears in the sort of puke green color scheme based on the original Game Boy screen. However, if the L button is held down while selecting this stage, it will instead load a black and white variant of the stage, based on later models of the Game Boy retiring the green screen. However, in the jump to Ultimate, while this stage makes a return, the black and white feature unfortunately does not, leaving just the Game Boy Green variant. Our next stage is the Unova Pokemon League, a stage based on the location from Pokemon Black and White and Black and White 2. This is the location where the player in both of these game series takes on the members of the Elite Four in their bid to become the champion of the Unova region. However, during the events of Pokemon Black and White, the climax of the story takes place, with N's castle rising out of the ground to surround the Pokemon League. This is ultimately where the player takes on the legendary Pokemon of their respective version, which leads into the main mechanic of this stage. After a bit of fighting, N's castle will rise up in the background. Ramps will appear on either side of the stage, and then one of the two legendary Pokemon will appear, either Reshiram or Zekrom, the main legendaries of Black and White. When Reshiram appears, the Fire Dragon Pokemon will attack using flames. Fire will either engulf the sides or the center of the stage, of course making it more difficult to traverse without taking gradual damage. When Zekrom appears, the Electric Dragon Pokemon will attack with a ball of electricity, which will either attack one of the sides of the stage, destroying the ramp on that side, or it will do another attack on the sides of the stage, which will tilt the stage entirely for a short time. Along with the appearance of these three legendaries, 3 additional Pokemon can appear. These Pokemon have no impact on gameplay and are merely there for eye candy. These Pokemon are Whimsicott, Milotic, and Shaymin. Halfway through Shaymin's appearance, it will transform into Shaymin Skyform, a form it takes on when the Gracidia flower is used on it during the daytime. Oddly, none of these Pokemon really have any business at the Unova Pokemon League. None of the Elite Four members use these Pokemon, or even the typings that these Pokemon are. The only logic I can see is for Whimsicott, a Pokemon introduced in Generation 5, so it at least makes sense to show it off on a Generation 5 themed stage, but Milotic and Shaymin? I got nothing. This stage's upgrade in Ultimate saw a pretty significant redesign of the overall aesthetic, however the stage is mechanically still the same as it was back on the 3DS. Pokemon's other new 3DS stage is Prism Tower. This stage is based on Lumiose City, the biggest city in the Kalos region, the setting for Pokemon X and Y versions. The Kalos region as a whole is inspired by France, and as a result, Lumiose City would be Paris, and the Prism Tower, its main attraction, is their Eiffel Tower, which also doubles as the Lumiose Gym. The version of the Prism Tower in Smash sort of splits the difference between its appearance in the actual games and its appearance in the Pokemon anime. The stage starts out at the base of the tower, fighting directly on the street. Eventually, platforms will appear out of the ground and take flight, carrying the fighters to about the top of the base of the tower. Then it moves again to about halfway up the spire of the tower, before moving to the very top segment of the tower. Finally, the platforms move to one more location, which are basically just the skies above Lumiose City, with the tower prominently in the background. The lighting on the stage progresses throughout a single day, going to a sunset before ultimately landing completely at night, with the city illuminated by tons of lights. On the ground form of this stage, we can see some advertisements at the entrance of the tower, which show off features found in Pokemon X and Y. Go-Goat Shuffle, Holocasters, Pokemon Ami, roller skates, trainer PR videos, and the Kalos champion herself, Diantha, with a silhouette of a trainer and a Lucario in the background, presumably advertising the Pokemon League. And what would a Pokemon stage be without background Pokemon appearing? Because Prism Tower doubles as the Lumiose Gym, which specializes in electric-type Pokemon, most of the background characters are electric types. Helioptile, Magnemite, and Emolga are all possibly seen throughout the stage. To further the reference, Emolga is a part of Lumiose gym leader Clement's team, while Magnemite and Helioptile are the pre-evolved forms of Clement's other two party members, Magneton and Heliolisk. Additionally, 2 legendary Pokemon are also visible on this stage. Zapdos is here, naturally because it's the electric type, and finally Yveltal, the only non-electric Pokemon on the stage, chosen instead because it's one of the legendary duo that is found in Pokemon X and Y. In Smash for 3DS, these Pokemon are kind of rare, but in Ultimate they appear pretty much every rotation. Next up we have Mute City, or as it's renamed in Ultimate, Mute City SNES. As the name says, this is a stage inspired by Mute City 1 from the very first F-Zero on the SNES, with the charm of it using the exact same sprites and graphics from that game. The stage infinitely follows the Mute City 1 track, with the fighters on some original platforms in the 16-bit style. The fighters are also joined by the only 4 machines in F-Zero: the Blue Falcon, Fire Stingray, Golden Fox, and Wild Goose. These machines are also participating in a race, which includes knocking each other into blast zones and regenerating energy, which can all serve as hazards during the match. Overall, this is a fairly basic stage, but I've always personally had a soft spot for stages that use old school graphics. It really offers a nice contrast. Now let's move on to a brand new Mother Series stage, Magicant. This pink and fluffy stage in the clouds is inspired by the land of Magicant, a world that was created and which resides in Maria's mind in Earthbound Beginnings. Magicant also exists in Earthbound, however this is a separate world from the one in Beginnings, instead created and residing in Ness's mind. As a result, this stage merges the two general designs into one stage, with notable landmarks from either game missing. Along with the overall design of the stage taking inspiration from both Magicants, many elements appear on the stage based on various moments in the series. A mobile sprout walks around acting as a moving platform. The mobile sprout is an enemy found in Earthbound, however ironically it never actually appears in Magicant. The Skyrunner, the spacecraft created by Dr. Andonuts in Earthbound, also appears. This will lower from the sky to hang out as an additional platform for a while before rising into the air again. A giant tomato can also rise out of the ground, capable of taking a few hits before being destroyed. This tomato is based on the Magicant found in Earthbound, which has an area that contains gigantic vegetables. An octopus statue is also able to appear out of the ground. This one has a bit more to its origin. In Earthbound, there are occasionally giant pencil statues found throughout the world that block certain paths, requiring the pencil eraser to remove them. However, this was a localization change for the North American release of the game. In the original Japanese, the statues were these octopus statues, requiring the octopus eraser machine to remove them. With Smash being developed by a Japanese developer, it makes sense for the statue that appears to be based on the Japanese version of Earthbound, Mother 2. Dungeon Man also occasionally appears on this stage as a potential platform. Dungeon Man is the name that the character known as Brick Road takes on when he's scientifically turned into a living dungeon, his lifelong dream. That dude's a weirdo. Flying men also appear on the stage as a stage hazard. In both Earthbound Beginnings and Earthbound, flying men are exclusively found in Magicants, with 5 found in each one. Ninten and Ness are both capable of recruiting them to aid in battles against enemies. This translates over into Smash's version of Magicant. A flying man will appear on the stage, and when a player walks by them, they will become that player's ally by attacking all other opponents on the stage. In the original games, when flying men are defeated in battle, a tombstone will appear by their homes. In Smash, players can attack the flying men back, and if they're defeated, a tombstone will appear by their spawn point, and eventually another flying man will spawn. However, an additional detail for this origin is that after 5 flying men are defeated, no more will spawn, based on only 5 being available in both Beginnings and Earthbound. Finally, the background of the stage features notable moments in both Earthbound Beginnings and Earthbound. Ninten at his house, along with Mick, his dog, Ninten speaking to Lloyd on the roof of Twinkle Elementary School, Ness and Paula walking around Threed, Ness, Paula, Jeff, and Pooh at the Lumine Hall, and Ness, Paula, Jeff, and Pooh walking in Saturn Valley just before their fight with Gygus. The first new Fire Emblem stage in Smash 4 is Arena Ferox. This stage is a sort of combat arena that the characters of Fire Emblem Awakening find themselves at during the events of the game. During Chapter 4, the party meets the East Con of Ferox. Every few years, the East and West Cons hold a tournament to see who will gain or keep control of the entirety of Ferox. The Shepherds need help with the conflict in Ulisse, so they agree to enter the tournament on the East Con's behalf so that she can gain the authority of the Feroxi military. During the course of the tournament, the Shepherds fight against a masked swordsman named Marth, who is ultimately revealed to be the time-traveling Lucina, Kron's daughter. The Smash stage is inspired by the arena that this tournament takes place in. The background with screaming viewers and the platform of the stage are all pulled straight from Fire Emblem Awakening. However, this stage also has multiple platform layouts that will rise out of the ground periodically. All of these are Smash original layouts, so they do of course match the aesthetic of the arena. This stage is also the first Fire Emblem stage to be based on a specific location in a specific Fire Emblem game. Following that, our next new stage is Reset Bomb Forest, a stage based on the events of chapters 10 and 11 of Kid Icarus Uprising. Hades sparks a war between 2 nations by tricking them into desiring the Wish Seed, an item that's said to grant any wish, but which is ultimately completely fake. The battle itself is interrupted by a huge fiery explosion, which is revealed to have been caused by Viridi, the goddess of nature. In order to punish humans, who Viridi sees as scum, she drops what she called a reset bomb onto the area of the battle, resetting it back to a more natural state, turning it into the Reset Bomb Forest, which Pit must then traverse. The stage in Smash loosely follows these events. It first starts out on the ruins of a castle, with the battle between the 2 nations taking place in the background. After a little bit of time, an image of Viridi will appear in the background, and after a moment, her reset bomb will drop onto the battle and the stage will then transform, now taking on the appearance of the Reset Bomb Forest. A lot of branches have spawned, destroying the castle even further and making the platforms even even more unstable, with some of them even being destructible. Along the top and bottom of the forest form of the stage, a long skeletal creature will fly across the screen, damaging players who touch it. This enemy is the Lurchthorn, an enemy of the Forces of Nature faction controlled by Veridi, which is first introduced during the events of Uprising's 11th chapter. Our next stage is a brand new Animal Crossing stage, Tortimer Island. This stage comes from Tortimer Island, a mechanic of Animal Crossing New Leaf for the 3DS. In New Leaf, the player is granted the ability to go to the island by Tortimer using Captain's boat. The island is random for each unique save file of New Leaf, but it will remain the same on each visit inside of those saves. The island has a lobby where you can talk to Captain's family members. Outside of minigames and exclusive items, the appeal to Tortimer Island is the ability to find unique bugs, fish, and exotic fruits that you can't find in the main town. In Smash, this island can take on many appearances and layouts, all of which are random each time you load the stage, based on the randomized aspect of the island from New Leaf. The lobby will always appear at the northern end of the island, just like in New Leaf, and it's possible to see Tortimer, Grams, Layla, or Leilani at the entrance. Many different trees with different fruits can be found as well, and these fruits can be eaten to heal health, with the exception of coconuts and durians, which are throwing items that can potentially explode. Occasionally, hitting the tree can result in a beehive item spawning, a reference to shaking trees in Animal Crossing and having a beehive drop out. There will always be a dock on either side of the island, and Captain will occasionally pull up in his boat, serving as an extended platform for the stage. Also in the water, a shark will occasionally appear, attacking any fighter who gets near. Our next stage is a really cool one, Balloon Fight. Inspired by the NES game of the same name, this stage keeps the 8-bit graphics and many of the mechanics found there. Balloon Fight saw you control a character flying around in a helmet with balloons attached, which, as an aside, is the source of Villagers Up Special. The goal was to fly around these stages popping the balloons of the enemy birds. On later levels, flippers would also be introduced, which will begin to spin when bumped into and deal damage to both player and enemy. A giant fish would appear at the bottom to drag players or enemies under if they get too close. If a player spends too much time on a stage, clouds will electrify and send out sparks, introducing a new hazard for the player to worry about. Lastly, if the player heads to the edge of the screen, they will wrap around and appear on the other side. All of these elements of the game are retained and adapted pretty accurately for Smash. All of the hazards exist, the stage wraps around, and even the fish will appear to drag players beneath the water. Along with this, the stage has 3 different variations, which are most noticeable by the color of the grass, either bright green, dark green, or orange. All 3 of these are possible colors that the Balloon Fight stages can have, ripped straight from the NES game. Staying in the realm of more obscure stages for Smash, we next have Living Room. Living Room comes from the Nintendog series, serving as a general stage for the wide variety of games in that lineup. Like the name suggests, this stage takes place on the long, flat floor of a living room, more specifically the country home from Nintendogs plus Cats on 3DS. Throughout the battle, building blocks and various toys will fall from the top of the stage, potentially hitting players and stacking into different layouts and structures. These blocks and toys come from the various toys that dogs and cats can play with during actual Nintendogs gameplay. The background of the stage will also have a random dog or cat playing around. This animal can either be a beagle, a toy poodle, a Jack Russell, a golden retriever, a Shiba Inu, or a calico kitten. There is also a retro TV in the background that, by default, displays an image of animals wearing Mario and Luigi hats. The background pet can sit and watch this TV, and the images will then cycle through other images of animals wearing Mario series hats. All of these images are taken from actual Nintendogs games. The next stage in Smash for 3DS is known as StreetPass Legend in Japan, StreetPass Quest in PAL regions, or simply Find Me in North America. This stage is inspired by the game inside StreetPass Mii Plaza, an application that came standard on the 3DS. With StreetPass, a 3DS in Sleep Mode could exchange Miis with other 3DSs in Sleep Mode, where you could essentially collect other people's Miis that you've passed by out in the real world. In Find Me, you could use these different Miis to rescue the player's Mii, who has been kidnapped by monsters. After beating Find Me, the player unlocks Find Me 2, in which the player's Mii is captured again along with their family. The true final boss of Find Me 2 is the Dark Lord's upgraded form, the Dark Emperor, fought at the Castle of Darkness. This setting and boss fight are the basis for the stage in Smash. A caged Mii can be seen swinging on the left side of the stage, representing the kidnap of the Mii in Find Me, with the cage itself even matching. This cage can be attacked and is pretty sturdy, making it a sort of swinging platform. However, it can eventually be destroyed, sending the Mii flying off in the distance. The Mii inside the cage is chosen at random from the saved Miis that are found on the 3DS or Switch system. The Dark Emperor will hang out in the background, performing a couple of different attacks. First, he can make either of the 2 platforms lower, forcing everyone to fight on the one that remains. More notably though is his ability to change the power of players' attack, defense, specials, speed, or all of the above, either positively or negatively. The way this is determined varies depending on the version of the game you're playing. In Smash for 3DS, the Dark Emperor will randomly pick one of the 12 Mii colors and impact all of the characters on screen whose costume is the same color as what he selected. In Smash Ultimate, this mechanic was scrapped, and the Dark Emperor will instead simply pick characters completely at random, meaning that one, some, all, or no characters can be chosen. The Dark Emperor can also jump in the foreground and physically attack as well. When this happens, players can also attack him back, and if he's defeated, the player that dealt the final blow will be given a temporary stat boost. Kind of a cool stage based on a mini-game inside of an app that's pre-installed on your 3DS system. Next, let's talk about Tomodachi Life. Tomodachi Life is another Mii-focused game, this time in the life simulation genre where the player follows and decides the interactions between various Miis on their system, from basic tasks to more long-term decisions like marriage. The core gameplay takes place in various rooms throughout an apartment complex, and this apartment complex is the basis for the stage in Smash. As an actual stage, the layout is fairly basic, with 3 inner floors of the building and the roof, ultimately comprising 4 levels that players can fight on. The bigger feature of this stage is the rooms inside of the building, which are only visible through the outer wall when a character is occupying the same space, kinda like the quirk of the Luigi's Mansion stage. For Tomodachi Life, the rooms inside are always randomized. There are 12 possible rooms that can be selected, with 6 being picked every time the stage is loaded. Each room inside is effectively pulled straight from Tomodachi Life, just with items rearranged so that the room is visible to the player. These rooms range from realistic looking living rooms to a room that looks like a boxing ring or a beach. Inside of these rooms we can see Miis, obviously referencing Miis living inside of the apartment complex. One of these Miis will always be the system's primary Mii, while the rest will be randomly selected from the other Miis on the system. All of these Miis can be wearing clothing that exists in Tomodachi Life. 4 unisex outfits, 8 exclusive to male Miis, and 8 exclusive to female Miis. There aren't really any references for these, they're just kind of different categories of outfits that you might find in the real world that are also found in Tomodachi Life. But I figured it was worth a mention. Lastly, in the background of the stage we can see the amusement park off in the distance, which is one of the unlockable activities found in the game. Our next stage is the rare example of a sequel stage in PictoChat 2. Like the first PictoChat in Brawl, this is inspired by the PictoChat application introduced on the Nintendo DS. It focuses on the drawing aspect, with each new drawing impacting the stage and gameplay in some way. All of the drawings for PictoChat 2 are completely new, and many of these are Smash originals that are simply creative ideas but otherwise have no reference. There are 26 different drawings this time, and like before, I won't bore you with all of the details on each one. However, there are a few that do indeed reference other games. First, we have the Donkey Kong drawing. This one features a crude sketch of the first level of Donkey Kong, including the big guy himself. DK will throw sketches of barrels down, which will follow the drawn ramps, simulating the gameplay of the arcade game. Another drawing replicates a segment found in Super Mario Bros. World 1-2. Platforms move up or down on either side with a row of bricks in the center, just like in that level. Next is a drawing that puts a bunch of Pac-Men onto the stage, damaging players on knockback. Sakurai revealed in a Miiverse Pick of the Day post that this specifically references Pac-Pix, a 2005 Nintendo DS game that required the player to draw their own Pac-Man to complete each level. So it's a nice little reference to multiple games that revolve around drawing functionality. Finally, we have a section with a ton of pipes, similar to those in Mario. Interacting with this pipe will suck the player in and have them appear at another random pipe, functionally similar to Mario pipes, as well as the pipes way back on Mushroom Kingdom in Smash 64. And we're finally at the last Smash for 3DS exclusive stage, Pac-Maze. The origin for this stage is pretty obvious, the mazes that Pac-Man needs to traverse through in the very first Pac-Man arcade game. The goal of each level is to eat every dot while avoiding the 4 different colored ghosts. A power pellet, one of the bigger dots, can be eaten in order to turn the ghosts into flashing blue and white forms, which Pac-Man can then eat. Overall, this stage is a decent tribute to these original levels, though many liberties have to be taken in order to make it a playable Smash stage. There are a couple of solid platforms that are based on the walls of the maze, while the soft platforms with white lines are based on the room and door that the 4 ghosts come from. And speaking of ghosts, Blinky, Inky, Pinky, and Clyde all appear on this stage as hazards, naturally dealing damage and knockback to anyone who hits them. Dots also appear on this stage, with a special per-player mechanic. Fighters can collect these pellets, and when they collect 100, their own special power pellet can appear, indicated by a matching color pointer above it. That player can collect it and will receive a boost to their attack power for a short while. Enemy players can attack opposing power pellets, which will grant them 20 points, and of course eliminate the chance of that player getting their stat boost. Neutral power pellets can also appear, with anyone capable of grabbing and using them. Bonus fruit can also occasionally appear, which is worth 10 points. Bonus fruit appeared in the Pac-Man arcade games, giving bonus points if the player can eat it. Collecting the big power pellets will also make the 4 ghosts turn into their flashing blue forms, and if the powered-up player collides with them, they will disappear and their eyes will flee, just like in Pac-Man. Interestingly, only the powered-up player will see the blue ghosts. Everyone else will see the regular ghosts and can still be damaged by them, which is an almost unique experience that only playing on multiple 3DS consoles could offer. Defeating the blue ghost will result in a point value appearing. 200, 400, 800, and 1600, the same points yielded if all 4 were eaten in Pac-Man. This stage would unfortunately not see a return in Ultimate, leaving it as an exclusive to Smash for 3DS. And that will do it for now. I originally planned to do both Wii U and 3DS in the same video, but now that I'm halfway through, I see how impractical that would have been. So next time, we'll stop having to squint to see the gameplay, and we'll tackle all of Smash for Wii U's brand new stages. Thanks for watching, y'all, and remember to be good to one another.